Hello and welcome today. We are so excited to have you all here with us. We're going to give everyone a minute to join. And while we're doing that, we're just going to go ahead and launch a quick poll for you to answer just to see, what kind of background you guys are all coming from before we kick things off. So go ahead and answer this poll. What size firm do you work for? For anyone joining, we launched a poll, just waiting for everybody else to join. Go ahead and answer that poll just so we can kind of see where everyone is coming from. Got about 30 seconds left for this poll. So what size firm do you work for? Let's wait for others to join. Getting a lot with 2 to 10 employees. All right, 10 more seconds for those of you who have just joined. Go ahead and answer the poll on your screen. What size firm do you work for? We just want to see, what backgrounds everyone is coming from. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end that poll and share the results. So it looks like we have 20% solo practitioner, 41% 2 to 10 employees, 19% 11 to 50 employees, and 20% 51 plus employees. So a really good mix. Welcome to today's webinar hosted by QuickBooks and Ramp. We're really excited to have you all here. Over the next hour, we're going to dive into how the powerful integration between QuickBooks and Ramps can streamline your expense management and close processes. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Brad to introduce speakers and kick things off. Thank you all.
Thanks, Heather. Hey, everybody. My name is Brad Gustafson. I'm the head of accounting channel here at Ramp. Excited to be joined by two of our accounting partners today, Liz and KC. We'll do introductions in just a second, but what they're going to be talking about today with me is how they're leveraging automation, to really increase their operational efficiency within their firms, which is allowing them to deliver more value to their clients. Before we dive in and get things going, I did want to cover a few housekeeping items. First thing, this session is being recorded. And so if you miss anything, get a phone call, get distracted, don't worry. We'll send out a recording to anyone who is registered after we wrap. Second thing, if you have any questions for the panelists, you can drop it in the Q&A box at any time. We'll try to cover as many of these questions as we can during a dedicated Q&A at the very end, about 10 or 15 minutes. One other thing, we're going to try to keep this conversation as organic and natural as possible. So I want you guys to envision that we're not on a computer screen. Pretend like we're actually at a fireside chat in Colorado, Christmas lights, big fire roaring. We're having a sip of coffee and we're all talking together. I do have some questions prepared, but we're going to try to keep it as natural as we can. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Liz to do her introduction, and then we'll pass it to Casey.
Thanks, Brad, and thanks everyone for attending today. We're excited to have this conversation. I'm Liz Mason, CEO and founder of Hierarch Accounting. I'm also a CPA in residence at TaxFigure. I have been in the accounting space since I was a child. Unfortunately, I grew up in a family of accountants, and I've been a CPA for the last 20 years, running a practice focused on efficiency where we do mostly CAS work.
Thanks, Liz. And Casey?
Yes, hi, Casey Eames. I've been in public accounting for almost 15 years now, kind of more in the CAS operations space for the past 9 years. I'm the CAS director for Dark Horse CPAs. Grew up in the Bay Area. I lived in Bellevue, Washington for 8 years, and I currently reside in Bozeman, Montana. And I love sports, volleyball, pickleball, traveling, and I actually really love accounting technology. So I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. Well, sounds like we have the right two people on the call today. Before we get in, I want to do one more poll for everyone. So let's go ahead and start the second poll, if we can here. And this is going to be, which areas of your workflows are the biggest time sink today? Where do you feel like you're spending majority of your time? Is it managing receipts and expense documents? Is it coding and categorizing transactions? Is it reconciling spend across cards, AP? Is it the month-end close and review? Is it preparing client-ready reports? A little bit of everything. Looks like we still got some answers coming in. Okay, you guys are fast. I think that's just about all of the answers. It looks like coding and categorizing transactions may be leading, followed closely by reconciling spend. Cool. Well, we'll go ahead and end that poll and we'll get some questions underway. All right. Liz and Casey, could one of you start by telling us just like a little bit about your firm, the types of clients you serve, the types of services you're offering these clients? Would love to just hear more of the background.
Yeah. So at High Rock, we take the approach of advisory first. And so we work with our clients at a controller or CFO level, and then we'll outsource everything below that from the accounting and finance functions as well. We have specific industries that we like to focus on. Our biggest teams are in technology, software as a service, biotech companies, strong team focus there. We have professional services. We actually do accounting for accountants in many cases, which I find fun. And then we have a team focused on e-commerce, a team focused on cannabis, and those are our biggest industries at the moment. And our advisors are very focused on how do we do this efficiently and set our clients up for scaling, since most of our clients are in high scaling industries.
Liz, do you have a favorite like client industry or vertical that you work with?
My favorite has always been technology. We've worked with many very interesting SaaS solutions. But I would say my favorite client ever was actually a biotech company that built something that changed the way that healthcare worked in a specific, very niche industry. But it was very cool to work with people at the level of like founding and developing and innovating a new technology in the healthcare space that then, blew up, and then we were able to work with them through an IPO. So that was really cool.
Awesome. Super cool. And then Casey, could you tell us a little bit more about Dark Horse, the types of clients that you all work with, the types of services you're providing?
Yes, so Dark Horse is a CPA firm, but it's a little bit more than that. It's a platform firm as a service kind of operating system for entrepreneurial accountants. So we were designed to offer like an alternative business model to the traditional CPA firm. And so we're building, the leadership team here is building a playbook essentially that supports CPAs to run their own books of business in with supported centralized systems, modern tools, technology, and then a supportive community of other CPAs who are also doing the same thing. We are fully virtual. We have been since the inception. We have about 160 employees across 25 states or so, and some employees in the Philippines as well. And we support clients ranging from early stage all the way up to established small, medium businesses who need bookkeeping. We do everything from bookkeeping, the outsourced accounting and controllership type work, fractional CFO advisory support, and then we also have tax and wealth also. And similar, we also have clients across the board. So we don't really have like specialties necessarily, but we do have a lot of concentration in professional services, real estate, construction, retail, consumer goods. We also do support the cannabis industry. And it's really up to each of the principals in our practices to choose what clients they want to serve and what industries.
Love that. And any industry that you find particularly interesting, like a favorite that you'd pick?
I think I'm actually proud of the fact that we provide support to cannabis companies, because my brother actually works in the Department of Health of California State and inspecting cannabis manufacturers and recreational facilities, and they have a really hard time. And so, they need help in this area, and it's nice to be able to help them operationally and from an accounting perspective.
For sure. Cool. Well, thank you both. So both of you have been doing this for quite some time, and I'm curious, like, how have you seen your clients' needs changing over time, especially as more businesses are really wanting more real-time visibility into their finances?
I mean, this is the most broad-based question you've ever asked me, Brad. I could go on for a day about all the changes I have seen. I think the crux of the situation is we are at a point where our client base is finally demanding that type of efficiency from accountants. Whereas when I founded HiRock and we were in this like cloud space, we had so many clients that were like, why are you doing that? I have a filing cabinet. I can just scan stuff occasionally. And it was, this very different mentality than we're at now, where the clients are actually the ones coming to the team being like, is this the best solution? Is this the most efficient? Does this get my employees and client team members the best experience doing their day-to-day jobs and allow for them to not be focusing on finance and accounting and instead be focusing on the things that they're actually hired for, right? And so we've hit that critical mass of there are enough efficient tools that integrate effectively that clients are pushing that back to accountants, which means that we've actually had more growth because we've seen these clients leaving some service firms that are just not quite there yet or not fully integrated or looking at apps the same way that we do or the way that we implement for growth.
Love that. So you're seeing an increase in client demand for new tools. They're coming to the firm asking for this. You're seeing other firms that are losing clients and they're coming to HiRock and you're able to support them.
Yeah.
Casey, what about on your end? Any changes that you've seen, something similar?
So I don't know that like businesses' needs have necessarily changed, but I think that their expectations for what can be reasonably provided is expanding, because I guess some of the themes, if I had to boil it down, what I'm seeing is just increased digitization. So older legacy clients are starting to retire and age out, and so many businesses are continuing to shift toward everything being cloud-based and getting more comfortable with technology. It's seeping into even industries that have previously lagged on, being more cloud-based and technology forward. Spend is kind of more decentralized. There's lots of SaaS, there's lots of subscriptions, there's hybrid and remote teams. And then the second theme to add on to digitization is just the speed, like the velocity of things that are happening now. It's just so fast. So the expectations for how long it takes to do things, it's just like compressing. So businesses are just dealing with more transactions, more digital transactions than ever before. And it's all happening so fast. So that need, what's happening is it's creating just like complexity and risk without the right tools in place. But it also creates a lot of opportunity because digital transactions are just super ripe for automation.
So that's a great segue into like the tooling, and there's no shortage of tech right now for accountants. I'm curious, is there a framework that you follow to decide on which tools that you want to use at HiRock, at Dark Horse? And what are you looking for when you're evaluating new tools that you want to support?
I'll let you go first, Casey.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is my core function, and I love accounting technologies, and we spend a lot of time evaluating tools because it's really part of the like the brand promise to our principals that join Dark Horse. And because Dark Horse is decentralized, we have to choose tools that strengthen like the consistency across 40 independent practices who are all running their own books of business. And it has to work for an individual CPA and their practice, and it also has to work broadly for Dark Horse and our whole platform. So we're choosing tools that will scale with individual practices and on the broad scale. So what we look at is actually very intensive. First and foremost, though, peer feedback. So is a tool reputable? I keep a really close pulse on the market in my like peer network groups. And I'm constantly just hearing names of tools and technology that's out there. And there's a lot of value in getting that firsthand experience from people who I know and trust have actually used the tool, or they've done a demo, or they've done an implementation. But second is really the internal assessment. That's the very technical formal like matrix that we build out. Some of the table stakes are security, controls, roles. Holistically, how does it fit in with the rest of our tools? Obviously the function, features, and the flexibility all have to be there. But we also look at, and this is where the peer feedback is helpful, like what's the customer service like and the support and training when you're actually using the tool. Last two pieces are the user experience, and there's layers to that because is it easy for the client to use if it's going to be a client-facing tool? Is it easy for the accountant to use, and then for the accounting firm to manage it? So does it have a centralized dashboard or console? And then last is the future proofing, which is really hard to do because things are happening so fast. But we look at the product roadmap. So does the tool work for us now, but is it also going to continue working for us into the future as our practices grow, as our firm grows, as our clients grow in complexity too? So it's a lot to analyze, but that's literally why my job kind of exists.
What, so Casey, I want to kind of unpack like the future proofing. That's really interesting. Like how do you go about like visualizing, is this tool going to work for me and my clients in the future? Are you like asking the technology company for their product roadmap, or how are you thinking about that?
100%. We try to have very close relationships with our partner, with our tech partners, so that we have like intimate knowledge around what is it that you guys are planning, and what's the timeline look like for some of these things, and how does that look compared to competitors that we would be looking at. It's really important to us to have like a close eye on the roadmap and understand that what we're looking at is also important to our partner.
I take that one step further when I'm partnering with vendors very closely, and I look at how much money they've raised, and where the money is coming from, what type of funding they have behind them. What we have found over the years, and Hyrox's been around a dozen years, so we've had some time to go through the vendor cycles. And what we found is there are some wonderful startups without the ability to fund it. And eventually they end up selling to a bigger player, and it kind of sucks, right? Because you're expecting this product roadmap, you're expecting these promises of the future, and all of a sudden they're either integrated in poorly, shut down, or very occasionally integrated well and move forward with the same type of functionality that you previously had. And so, we actually dig pretty deep on what that looks like, who's on their cap table, who's on their board of directors, what those relationships look like. And the reason, again, we do that is because of this experience of having really close vendors with this amazing idea, no funding, or really close vendors with this incredible technology that just peters out because they take it a different direction, or their focus isn't accountants anymore, it's lawyers, or their focus isn't firms, it's individual companies. And so, the relationships that Casey's talking about, I cannot stress enough how important those are, and how important it is to understand the strategy of the company holistically, as well as are they funded enough to accomplish that strategy. And anybody who's providing CAS or advisory services is smart enough to understand that. If you see a company that has like one seed round and a technology, and they don't have big players on their executive team, on their board of directors, they don't have the relationships or the integrations with other apps, you might wait.
Yeah, love that advice. You're wanting to see the longevity of the company, or the ability for the company to have longevity.
Well, I can say whatever I want, right? Like any vendor can come to the table and say, "This is my plan. Isn't it great? Like, would you love to be on board with us forever?" And yeah, it sounds great. This is wonderful. I love all of these ideas. I want to partner with you. But if you only have $5 in your bank account, you're not going to get there.
Yeah.
So
Makes total sense. So one other question I have just on this topic is around balancing like your operational efficiency, right? Versus wanting to bring on new technologies and maybe wanting to meet client demand. Clients come in, hey, I want to use this tech. Hey, I heard about this new tech. Like, how do you think about that? How do you balance that? Like you want to remain efficient, but you also want to support new technologies. Any advice on that or guidance?
So I think Casey and I come at this from different perspectives. Our team is much smaller purposefully. We have 10 US advisors, and we have a team in India that supports us with all of the back office. And the verticals that we go into, we go in very, very deep. And so our SaaS vertical, for example, there is no way I can dictate an entire tech stack for every SaaS company. It will not happen. They come to us with their friends, like their VCs are also invested in this other tech company that they want them to test, or there's like layers deep of these conversations that come. And because they're technologists generally founding these companies, they are very, very understanding of how the tech is working and how they want it to work for their company. So I bring that up to say, in that particular vertical, we are constantly playing with new technology and it is not efficient. And we acknowledge that. And that is part of the service we are providing in that industry purposefully. And it's part of our value prop is that no, we don't have one specific tech stack. We use all of these tools on behalf of our clients. And you may pay a little bit extra for that lack of efficiency that we have, but you also can ask the questions. How does this work on another client? Right? Let me know before I commit to this, how this is working in this tech stack workflow, because these companies are raising money very quickly. We're going through lots of rounds of fundraising with them, and that we need to be able to answer these questions for their investors and promise that these solutions will scale for the particular of what they're building and how they're building it. And most of them have revenue on their front end that then gets integrated through an API. And we have a team that we work with, and we work with their developers to build these integrations. And so it is very customized. Go over to our cannabis team. Most cannabis companies don't understand technology coming in off the bat. They may have some ideas about a seed to sale or core general ledger system, but most of the time they're not integrated. Most of the time they're not implemented well. It's very easy for us to say, at your size, here is the solution. Here's the technology that is going to accomplish everything you need. We're going to implement it. Our team is trained. And so we take a different approach based on industry, based on client needs, and based on if there's a value add to us playing with those other things.
Love that. Lots of versatility in your firm to understand like the different client types and then how to approach, what technology you use. Casey, anything on your end in terms of how you go about or adopting new tech versus remaining as efficient as possible? What does that look like at Dark Horse?
Yeah, so we do have a different approach, and it is to standardize as much as possible. And I would say that the majority of the clients and prospects that come to us are actually looking for us to make recommendations, and it's kind of like in our hands to decide like what's the best way to run, our accounting operations. And so we've defined our core tech stack. We do a very diligent process to choose that. And then we believe that that's the best way for us to scale. Chase Berkey, our CEO, has often said that we're building the wheel for new CPAs, and we don't need to build it like a million different ways. Let's make a really good wheel and then just kind of keep processing it that way. So that's the approach that we take.
Awesome. Thank you both. Cool. Now that we've set the stage, we can jump into the Ramp and QuickBooks portion. So you're both partners with Ramp and QuickBooks. I'd love to switch gears a little bit and just talk about how these platforms work together, how it's impacting your day-to-day operations at your firms. First question I have is, before adopting Ramp, what were some of the challenges that you may have faced in terms of keeping client books clean and accurate?
So we see a lot of messy books, either business owners who've tried to tackle accounting themselves, or that, they've hired a bookkeeper or accountant that they thought was qualified and maybe wasn't. And so sometimes we're seeing situations where the spend is really unstructured. Like there's different people using different cards, making purchases without controls or spend policies. It's kind of just based on like honor code or best guesses of categorizations. So there's chaos kind of happening like upstream, like inside the business operations. And that ultimately leads to messier books that we're dealing with. And so what that looks like for us is chasing receipts and explanations from clients. That's a big time suck for our people, especially people who are employees, maybe who are clients who are out in the field and maybe late to respond to those kinds of transaction questions. And it just kind of starts to pile up at month end. And so then there's so much data entry and coding happening all at once, and it's actually like disentangling what's happening. I've also seen some really manual processes, like a client that was using a shared spreadsheet for tracking expenses, and like 30 people were hopping in there, typing in their best explanation of what the transaction was for. It doesn't even line up with an actual account. So there's so much room for error and inconsistency and inaccuracy. So the challenge for us has been, it's hard to scale when everything's hitting at the same time and we have to code and disentangle all of this mess. And we want to be able to like smooth that over, over the course of the month, instead of it all just getting slammed at month end.
Sure. And Liz, similar experiences for you, or anything you would add?
Very similar. I would say these are shared experiences with everybody. And quite frankly, in the space that we're in, most of our clients are moving so fast because they're in growth mode that it just compounds. And it wasn't just month end, it was year end too, where these things were piling up. We're trying to get all the reports for 1099s, and we're realizing that a bunch of spend was done randomly in other places that we couldn't actually track or find in meaningful ways until you get in there with the team member that did it, and it's messy, right? And that's obviously the opposite of how we want to do accounting, right? Like we want to do accounting with source documents.
Makes sense. And so the integration between Ramp and QuickBooks, you're both using it with clients.
Mhm.
How has that changed things when it comes to clients' month end, close, or reconciliation process? How has it changed things?
Yeah, so Ramp and QuickBooks are two of the tools that actually cross all of our industry teams. We recommend them regardless of what industry, well, except for cannabis for banking issues, but that's a whole other conversation. Outside of restrictions that the softwares put up towards us, we can recommend these across the board, right? And that has created a lot more efficiency. So earlier, Casey was talking about how they very specifically build those tech stacks to create efficiency. And for our team, that becomes difficult because of the nature of some of the relationships that we have. And this is one place that we can do that. So not only does this allow for like cross team training, Ramp is by far our favorite tool for managing expense and managing holistic expense, credit card budget, even the expense reports, like everything is going through there, and it allows us to do source document accounting, which I push very heavily with our team. Like we're not bank statement accountants, we're source document accountants, because that is way more accurate. And so it's not only like increased efficiency, it's increased accuracy, and it's created a better training environment for our team as well.
Love to hear that. Casey, what about you and the Dark Horse team?
Yeah, all the same things, but to, I guess, take it from a different angle is the way I see Ramp is it's this extra layer of defense up front. Because the closer we can get to the root of a transaction, the easier it's going to be to keep the books clean. So if we can tackle the issues that are prevented before they get to accounting, so missing receipts or the unclear spend, if we can confront that earlier, because I think we all know, like, as time passes and the person making a transaction becomes further removed from it in time and space, the harder it is to gather that information. So if we can shorten the time and distance between the person and the transaction, the better off we're going to be. And then that real-time sync into QuickBooks, pulling in the attachment, like Liz mentioned with the source documents, it's just kind of like doing so much of that for you up front. So then when you get to the month-end close process, it's more of a high-level review verification rather than like reconstructing what happened.
I love that framing of like first line defense and getting closer to the source of the transaction. That makes total sense. Okay. Thinking through the lens of just automation and breaking it down between tasks that you feel can be automated by technology versus tasks that you think is still important for a human to be involved. Like how do you guys split those out? Like what tasks are best to be automated? What tasks are best to continue to have human involvement and oversight?
So like humans have done so much of everything for so long that I think it's hard for us to decipher like which tasks are we using brain capacity on that a system could do. But I think it's important to try to think about like let's split those tasks up. So automation can help with like the hard and fast stuff, memory type tasks, and it's really good at analyzing big data. It does really well with rules and with patterns. So like coding, categorization, like enforcing spend limits, sending reminders to clients to provide this information, like that's something the system can do. We shouldn't have to do that. What I think still needs human judgment is there's actually a lot of information about a business that's not captured in the system. Either the inputs are incomplete or they're imperfect, or because it's like it just can't be quantifiably, like, it's not tangible yet. And so if it's not in the system or the information in the system is conflicting, then automation doesn't work that well with it. So humans are really good in that ambiguous space when there's partial data, maybe we don't have supporting documentation, or the classification requires like qualitative context, that gray zone classification. And there's still a lot of ambiguous situations in accounting. So I do think human judgment is going to be required for a chunk of it all the time still.
And so to add on to that, when I'm thinking about automation, I'm thinking about the different types of automation, right? There's a type of automation that Ramp provides, which is amazing and helpful, right? There is coding inside of there that's done automatically based on historical context and rules and information that's collected inside of Ramp before it's integrated into the general ledger. And the accuracy there is much higher than we've had in other instances using other tools. When that information comes over, that's the automation, right? That's the integration, the automation of it. There's also automation coming through AI and the development of AI that is a totally different class of automation. And so when I'm ideating around automation, I bucket it into, is this an API automation? Does it have maybe a small layer of machine learning on it like Ramp does currently? Or are we talking about like a full big picture AI solution, like an agentic AI that's coming in and making decisions and looking at some of those ambiguous gray areas in a different light? And I think, as that level of automation gets evolved and developed and more synthesized and we have more contextual information in there, it will surface what the gray area items are for somebody to decide. And that is the type of automation that we're investing into. We, of course, are investing into the API automation, the automation of information gathering, and the actual base level of accounting on a regular basis. And both Intuit and Ramp are doing a ton for that category currently, and layering on the agentic AI as it's ready and developed. And I'm thinking more on the advisory side. Like right now, we don't have a lot of automation in advisory. Like we have some trained GPTs or Claudes that will give you, oh, maybe you should look at this trend or think about this or talk to your client about this thing. And it's things that humans would recognize if they just looked at a balance sheet right now. And that is developing and getting better. And so, it is such a hard moment because the data isn't all available. You still have to feed it in. There's still a lot of manual input into any kind of agentic AI currently to get you to the point where you have this information. And so until all of that is integrated across automation platforms, we won't see the benefits of it in a meaningful way, and we will require human intervention because, AI is never going to be ethical either. So there's a whole other segment of conversation around that, but
That's the next fireside chat. Okay, cool. So let's talk about impact. When you think about the impact of automation and a lot of the tasks that technology can automate, it's giving a lot of time back to firms like yours. What are you doing with that time that you're getting back? And are you repurposing it around different client service offerings, advisory work? What does that look like for you?
Brad, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Have you ever met an accountant that's not busy?
No.
No.
They're
Across the
always
board, accountants fill our time. We have things to do, and data entry is annoying when it's not done right. And the base level of automation is amazing to relieve the stress of having to go do that manual effort. That is not to say there are not 5,000 other things on everyone's list to go do. So when you say, like, are you repurposing your team's time? Like, my team is repurposing their own time and they're finding more value added things to do that were things they would quote unquote get to. Like, I'll get there. I will totally get there one day. I'll be thinking about this, or I'll try and streamline this other thing, or focus on these bigger picture projects that are taking away the manual effort, right? And now we're actually seeing results on that side. And also, I've never met an accountant that's not busy. So I don't think there's ever been a moment where automation takes away enough time where they're like, what can I go work on? Like, okay.
Makes total sense. Casey, what about for you and Dark Horse? Are there, like, with the time that you're getting back, like, how is your team, how are they changing what they're focusing on? Are they focusing on advisory more? What does that look like?
That's the goal. I think it is funny to think, like, what do you do with the time back? Like, it doesn't feel like we just got this windfall of time, but like, yes, that is happening, that we're trying to move towards advisory. And I think when when you start to remove the friction and the noise of all the transactional stuff, I do think it creates space for advisory to start kind of naturally emerging a little bit more. Like when teams aren't busy untangling the mess of transactions, you can start to see patterns earlier. You can ask bigger, better questions like about the bigger picture of what's actually happening rather than the details of the transaction. And so I think once we remove that noise, the back and forth, what was this charge for? It does start to help the relationship that we have with clients, because when we ask the questions about like, what was this for? Clients start to see us as just transaction coders, and that doesn't really feel like help to them. It kind of feels more like a police officer, like, what was this for? But when you let the system, like an automated system, ask those questions for you, I think it helps smooth the relationship that we have with our clients. And so it gets easier to kind of build that value proposition to them too. So I think, yeah, we're kind of getting over, using automation helps us like get out of the transactional tasks so we can start to showcase the value we can bring to clients. And that's with the big picture perspective. That's where the bigger problems we can kind of start addressing.
I love to hear how it's kind of changing those client conversations and making them more strategic. And yeah, it makes sense that the client would perceive that as more valuable than the like very specific transactional type of conversation. Very, very helpful to hear. Cool. Let's see, AI in the profession. Everyone's hearing a lot of buzz around AI. There's no shortage of that. How have you experimented in your firms with AI so far, and where have you seen success?
Yeah, so we have done a lot of fun things. Like this morning, we were talking about building a twin AI on the team and effectively like having video content coming from our individual advisors that looks and sounds and interacts like them, but building it as an automated flow behind the scenes based on like criteria around financial statements for month end delivery, where it might go with a month end and be a 2-minute video about here are the insights that I saw, right? And one of the things that I've been ideating for a long time is professional services is not really a scalable business, right? Like you have to scale with people. There's no way to scale this business without hiring and developing and building really strong advisors. And we're getting to the point where advisors can start scaling themselves through some of this technology, as with a lot of oversight. Don't get me wrong, we're not at the point where you can just build an automation and press a button and not review it and know that it's right. You have to review it every step of the way and make sure that it's being accurate, and saying things that you're comfortable with also, because if it's going to use your likeness, like you don't want your twin AI to be babbling off some bad advice. Like that would be terrible and probably a security issue, and your insurance might get mad at you when you get sued. But I would focus back on like that's one area that we've been experimenting with and playing with and doing some stuff for marketing with. And then, other areas is like we've trained different GPTs on our voices for content development. We've done it for, reviewing of financial statements. We're still very, very careful to redact any client identifiable information before it goes into an LLM. And then I've been building something called Tax Figure on the side, which is effectively a deep tax research product that also integrates all of your client context and information to be able to give you information as you're advising clients, right? Like one of the biggest holdups for CAS firms on the tax side, like if you have CAS and tax, your client's going to ask the CAS advisor the questions. They don't know tax, so then they have to go ask the tax advisor the questions, and then there's a back and forth and some research that has to happen and some questions. Like I'd like to have a tool that can just answer those questions live, right? And then you can send it to tax for verification. Like, was this right? Like, are we on the right path? Like, does this look good? And that's a way different workflow and requires different resource management. We've also told our team to try and get Tax GPT to commit tax fraud. And it will advise you to commit tax fraud if you push in the right direction, which is fun sometimes. We've asked the team to go ask questions of different, like Claude and Perplexity and GPT, like just figuring out like who answers this question in different ways and how far can you push the system and convince it around its guardrails to give you bad advice. And the reason we're doing this is to show our team, hey, this is what clients are going to do, right? They're going to come in there and say, I'm in a really bad cash position. What can I do? Like, give me all of the strategies, all of the advice. And then they're going to come to us to validate it. And that's the goal, is that they come to us to validate it. And we need to understand how this stuff is getting through and where that advice is coming from so that our team can respond effectively, right? So those are just some of the ways we've been playing with it. There's a whole, I could talk about this all day. So I'll let Casey speak.
Love that. Thank you, Liz. Casey?
That's a super cool approach, Liz, to think about like how our clients are going to be using it. That's interesting. I hadn't heard that one before. So at Dark Horse, we've been pretty pro AI since the beginning. And the way we think about it is like, do we want to build, buy, or partner with AI? And AI is pretty much like it's layered into every tool in our tech stack at this point. And so they're always like our tech partners are rolling out new features all the time, and we constantly are exploring them to see like, which ones are can we build into our processes. We use Copilot and ChatGPT Enterprise, and we encourage all employees to play and find ways to leverage it in their work and then to share it when they do. So we have an AI channel internally where people can share their learnings. And so we have teams exploring a lot of the things that Liz mentioned, how to analyze and deliver reports, executive summaries, the conversations we can have with clients about their numbers. I've seen people talk about like aiding in a cash flow modeling practice of it. And then, like AI is into its bank feeds right now with anomaly detection and then client collaboration tools. So a lot of the tools we use have AI in it. And then we're doing a lot of our exploration with the tools on the side too.
And so looking ahead, and Liz, you may have teased this a bit, like this question that I'm about to ask, but where do you see the biggest opportunities for accountants who are embracing automation and AI?
So ultimately, my goal is to create a situation where our firm is all augmented advisors, where we can focus on relationships, where we can focus on providing valuable insight and filling that gap of understanding the contextual information, understanding, what's happening in our greater economy in those industries, understanding things that data doesn't really tell you, and being that trusted partner. And we are already that. And also, we are constantly sidelined by the nuances of accounting. We're constantly looking and reviewing reports that are just not right and having to go in and find it and fix it and figure out what tool failed or what transaction was wrong, or if, maybe the company's like not actually doing as well as it should, why? And let's look into that and understand it. And so I want to be able to do that faster. I want our team to provide timely reports. Every study they've done from like a macroeconomic perspective, looking at the timeliness of information, it always leads to better decisions. And if it leads to better decisions, it leads to better business outcomes for our clients. And we have a moral responsibility and an ethical responsibility to our clients and our profession to utilize the best tools to be able to provide good, solid advice in a timely manner. And the faster we can do that, the better. And so for me, it is focusing high level on how do we build strategy underneath that vision, and the vision of building the best advisory team in the industries we serve, right? In the methods and the things that have worked for us for a long time and the strategies that we've employed.
Thank you, Liz. And Casey, what about you? What's the biggest opportunity in your mind? How would you articulate that for accountants who are embracing AI?
So I think automation and AI can increase the surface area that a single accountant can cover. And so one accountant can support more clients and probably more deeply when they're not in the weeds of it too. So they can kind of converse on the higher level of analysis that the clients are needing the conversations around. So focusing more on that human to human conversation, like that is the key to the advisor relationship, is that human interaction. And so the more we can automate and leverage AI, the more time people can have to actually sit there on a call with a client or go into their office and speak with them. So a second layer to that though too, I think that AI can actually help with the training and up leveling of our staff too. because AI is going to be making decisions, and it might have a tooltip that explains why it made a particular categorization. And yes, it's kind of doing that work for you, making that decision for you, but it's also reinforcing your own pattern recognition. So if you have new people coming up in the industry and they're seeing the way AI is making categorizations, I think it's kind of helping train them. And then when AI is going to, project an executive summary or analysis or something like that, that maybe an accountant could do on their own, they're reading that, they're scanning that, they're learning, oh, these are the kinds of conversations that I should be having with my clients.
Love that. It's almost like accelerating their learning and development. Great. Well, final question that I have for you both. Can you believe we're already 45 minutes in? If you could just give one piece of advice to a firm that's starting their AI automation journey right now, what would that piece of advice be for them?
Automation, AI, it's not just a software rollout. It's a mindset, like it's a way of thinking about things, and it's also an investment. So challenge yourself to like separate the tasks that you do that truly need a human brain and those that don't. And I think it's important to try to be critical of that. And then start with really small tests, run a test automation, and then build them over time. You're not going to automate your whole workflow overnight, but it's an accumulation of something that if you invest the time in it and you have patience and you experiment, over time, it's going to pay off. So I think you should spend as much time as you can with AI, because like the worst thing you can do is try it, and if it doesn't work, stop using it. Like it's a feedback loop, and it needs you in it to learn, and you need to be in it to learn too.
I agree with all of that. And I think the best advice I could give anyone when you're endeavoring to think about change that's coming is to accept that we are in a moment of extreme change beyond even what the Industrial Revolution was, if you look at it from a time perspective. And everything we do around us will change, and accepting that that's going to happen is very important to actually being able to implement effectively and understand the technology. And the second piece of that is know how you learn. So I'm extremely ADHD, and I get into these like crazy hyper focus moments where I will deep dive down a rabbit hole for like 10 days at a time and learn everything there is to know about a topic. And I've done that on AI like years and years ago, right? But I keep doing it because the rate of change is so fast that the way that it's being developed, the way that systems are being structured and architectured, like all of it is changing every single day. And it's insane to keep up on. And so if you are not the type of person that wants to do extreme deep research and become an expert in whatever you can in a short amount of time, is it videos? Is it talking to people? Is it reading articles? What is it? And find where you have that resource. So identify, a newsletter that tells you the updates that are relevant to you if it's reading, right? Or identify a community that you can interact with if you learn kinesthetically and you need to ask questions and see it and connect with people one-on-one. Or find somebody that's putting out videos about this, or find a Twitter feed that's like talking about the developments. But whatever it is, find your way to keep on top of it and keep learning, because it will keep coming, and tomorrow it's going to be different than today. And I don't say that tongue in cheek. I mean that literally. Tomorrow there will be an announcement about something in AI that changes some of the foundational understanding of what is possible.
Awesome, Liz, Casey, insanely valuable guidance and advice here. We're going to move to Q&A from the attendees. And first question I have here, and by the way, if you're online, please feel free to put questions in. We'll take your questions and we'll get as many answered as we can. But to kick things off, Tammy Alexander asked, how do you help your teams get comfortable trying new AI tools without feeling overwhelmed?
Casey, you have a much larger team.
Yeah, that's a tricky question, but I mean, we talk about it all the time. We talk about tools. We talk about basically understanding that you have to get comfortable with failure and with experimentation and trying new things. And one of the things that we do to minimize that overwhelm is like making sure we have a clear, defined tech stack. So it isn't a bunch of tools all over the place. It's here are the tools that we have. And each of these tools might have overlapping features too. So we're trying to narrowly define the pathway of feature sets even within a core tech stack that we use. All of the tools, a lot of our partners have features that are going off in every direction. And we try to say, okay, what are the ones that are the most impactful to our work? And let's teach you how to use those. And that's kind of where we hone our focus.
And our culture is very tech forward and tech enabled. And so half the time it is my team coming to me saying, I think I could use AI for this. What do you think? And I say, go try. Let's see what happens. Like, here's my advice or safeguards or things that you're not considering that may backfire. But we don't really have the opposite problem. Everybody on the team is excited about these tools. The only thing I can say is like, because of the rate of change of AI, our vendor partners, including Intuit, including Ramp, sometimes have changes in their interface or the way that the tools are working, and that gets sprung on our team. And those are the moments that we have to jump in for change management. And generally speaking, explaining the why is very helpful. So in many cases, we'll reach out to our vendor reps and say, hey, why did this change? Like, what's the reason? And we'll get directed to some blog post or some webinar or some announcement that happened about it. And then our team's like, oh, okay, I guess I understand it. So I can accept it.
Perfect. Thank you both. And thank you, Tammy, for the great question. Next question comes from Zach Williams. This is a good one. If you could wave a magic wand and make one task in your day-to-day life automated, what would it be? What would that singular task be?
I guess with how much like context gathering and data gathering that we have now, that we use AI to help us with, it now makes me think of all of the context in my life that isn't being captured that it could help me with. And so I don't know that it's a specific task, but if I could wave a magic wand, and I'm really thinking dreamy here, it would be that I want the context of all of my conversations in my life to be documented. Like, I journal, I don't get enough stuff down. There's so much about like the things that I think about and the dots I'm connecting about different experiences in my life, personally and professionally. And I think that the more context I could give to AI and be able to leverage that, I think that would be really cool.
So this is an exercise I go through kind of on a daily basis. It started a few years ago and I found myself in a bit of a like depressed, anxious mode and I was burnt out and I said, okay, how do I change this, right? Because in those modes, it's very difficult to like get the motivation to change things. You kind of just keep existing in the negativity and I didn't want to anymore. And so I promised myself every single day I would wake up and I would write down one thing that I hate doing. I just hate it. I don't want to do this anymore. This is the thing that needs to be taken off of my plate, both personally and professionally. And I've done that now consistently for like 6 years. And so the things that I can automate, I have automated. And the things that I can delegate, I have delegated. And the things that I can hire someone in my personal life to do for me, I have done. And of course, like what I can afford. I can't afford somebody to come and dress me every day, but that might be nice too. But if I could automate something currently that I haven't already played with, it would be the execution side of ideas. Like if I could sit in the idea zone and dictate, this is exactly the vision for this, this is the strategy, this is how I think it should be done. Like go experiment with that, tell me if it's viable, and then make it happen. That is what I would want.
Love it. Automating the execution. Cool. Next question I have comes from Tracy. Tracy asks, can we get a few examples of tools that you know many companies are having success with?
For us, our tech stack is, we've spent a lot of time vetting these tools and making sure that this is the right combination that covers the greatest surface area with the least amount of tools having to plug into it. And it is Intuit as our baseline for QuickBooks on QuickBooks side and on PTO for the tax side of things. Ramp has been our chosen spend platform and build like AP workflow. And then we layer on Double for our close process. I think that covers like a lot of what we need to do on the CAS side of things. We have reach reporting as well as kind of an add-on for more advanced reporting. But I think with the basics that I just listed, like that would cover a lot of ground.
This is a really hard question because it depends on our industry team. And part of that's just because they're so deep. But the cross the board tech stack is very similar to what Casey said. We use Carbon for our practice management, and that's gone well. We use Ramp across every industry we can. And that has actually been the biggest, I would say, cross-sell opportunity for us because we run into expense management issues and everywhere. So the team has pushed Ramp very hard on our clients and even changed off of some of the things that they used to use. We also use Double for close management, which was Keeper, if anyone's wondering. Name changes always throw me for a loop, which is fun. We've had some success with different banking applications. This is a very hard question because there is not one answer. It depends on what your ideal client profile is, what industry you're playing in, what you're building for. Like our SaaS companies, we have to have RevRec. So we use a tool called Maxio most often on that side. Happy to answer more questions on that if you connect with me on LinkedIn and like specifically ask like what are the tools for this thing, and I will be like, here's all my opinions. I have too many.
Love it. Okay, we've got time for one more question. Kelly Burns asks, any security or confidentiality concerns with using AI? And she provided an example. Dropping in financial data of a client to summarize results. Is there concerns for confidentiality from posting it to AI platforms, or any tips on how your teams use it without risk?
So first, get a really good cyber insurance policy. And second, read that policy. Our policy specifically excludes if you put something into AI that has client identifiable information, which means that we can't put a financial statement that says the name of the company or has the company EIN into AI and be safeguarded from any risk. I can say that there's multiple levels of each platform that involve different levels of security, and you can host an LLM locally on your own servers as well to safeguard and shut down access. So understand each tool you're using, understand their levels. If you're paying for it, understand your insurance, and then formulate a policy that safeguards all of that.
Yeah, so we use Copilot, which has some guardrails around it. We also make sure that everybody knows, how to anonymize the information that they're putting in so that there isn't any identifiable information connecting it to a client. There's also ways within ChatGPT to select like a temporary chat or no training. So there's a lot of ways that you can kind of put those protections in place, but ultimately it comes down to training and making sure that your people know how to use it correctly.
Awesome. Well, with that, we're going to wrap things up. Thank you, Liz and Casey, for sharing all your insights today. Thank you to all the attendees for joining and spending some time with us. Hopefully you're walking away from this with some new ideas that you can go deploy. And thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. By the way, as a thank you for attending, you do get a $100 gift card when you book a meeting with Ramp if you're interested in checking us out and aren't familiar with us yet. But thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.